Hello lovely people, it's Sarah here again with another video, and this time we're going to use furnishing buckram. I'm going to experiment, which I do a lot, wing it and see what happens. And we're going to use furnishing buckram, the type that's sold for curtains, pelmets, that sort of thing. It doesn't work the same way as normal buckram, millinery buckram, but we'll give it a go. Now I'm starting with this woven buckram. Now it's double-sided iron-on adhesive. I think this one's 5 inches wide, and this is often sold for tie-backs, and it means we can iron the fabric to it. Now I'm going to cut a piece off here. Now I want this to be quite thick, so I'm doing two pieces, and I'm just going to cut a shape. As I say, I did this just ad hoc. So I'm going to cut two freeform shapes. So I'm going to cut a big sort of squiggly leafy thing, feathery thing, I don't know. I don't know what shape you'd call this. It just popped into my head. As I say, I'm using 2 pieces because I think I'll need the thickness for this, and it's not as heavyweight as millinery buckram. So there we are, I've got 2 shapes. Now because this type of buckram can only be really used for flat items, I'm going to add some wire to give it some flexibility, and this is just thin plastic covered garden wire, or you can use craft wire. I think I use craft wire a bit later on in this video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it down the middle as if it was a leaf, and that's the spine of the leaf. And I've glued it in place with high-tack glue. So I glue it and then clip it down so it stays there until it dries. And then I do the second one exactly the same. Now I'm only wiring 1 piece of each feathery shape. I don't need to wire both, so just one needs the wire down. And I'll leave that to dry. And then I'm going to cut the fabric, so I'm using the other shapes that I haven't wired. And I'm cutting 2 pieces of fabric for each shape. So I'm cutting this with a big sort of seam allowance type thing around it. Only has to be rough cut, as long as it's going to fit. I'm using some polyester sort of satin fabric here that I found in my stash box. I have a lot of stuff in my stash box. So my fabric's cut, and I ironed it just to one side, and I just did it quickly so that it didn't melt the glue on the other side. Now what you can do is, this is the nice thing about the double-sided, you can fold the edges over and fix them to the reverse if you want to. Now I didn't have to do this for what I decided to do with these shapes, but still it shows you that you can do it if you just want to have this piece flat and laid on top of something else. Then you've got a nice neat edge to it, and you don't have to bind it or anything. So just be careful not to push the iron across the adhesive, or you end up with a very sticky iron. So yeah, just take your time. I didn't with this, but I didn't leave a lot of allowance there, did I? Still, when both sides are covered, I actually stitched them together very, very close to the edge, just to make them stiff and hold together. And then I decided to add satin bias binding all the way around both shapes. So I stitched it with the machine on one side, folded it over, and hand stitched the other side. So there we have 2 shapes. And now I've got to figure out what to do with them. So I got a narrow ribbon covered headband, and then I just, as I would say, faffed about for a while, thinking, what am I going to do with these? I decided to embellish them with bugle beads, so I sewed a lot of bugle beads on to give them a little bit of sparkle. And then I stitched them carefully to the headband, and I also put a little piece of felt over the stitching, glued a little piece of felt to keep it even more secure and tidy it up. And what I like now, because they're wired, you can bend them about like cat's ears, make them different shapes. So then I thought, what can I do next? So I'm still using double-sided Buckram, and you can buy Buckram from me in my shop. And this time I thought I'll do some leaf shapes. So I'm just doing one to show you, because this time I'm going to wire the edge, and I'm just using craft wire that you can buy in most craft shops. This is, again, is plastic covered. And what I've done is I've zigzag stitched it to the edge. I've got 2 pieces of silk, scrap of silk I had. I'm using a cloth, and then I'm pressing the silk onto the Buckram to activate the adhesive. You do have to press quite hard and quite firmly and go over it, and you must leave it to cool down, otherwise the adhesive doesn't stick, and a lot of time people go, oh, it's all come apart again. So I'm going to cover the edges probably with bias, but you'll see now the edges are wired, I can twist it and turn it and make something really nice with it. So I'm going to do a few of those, but not for this video. With this one, I cut a halo shape, and I covered it with some sparkly fabric that I found in the Christmas shop, some metallic fabric. But I thought, oh, it's a bit of sparkle, a bit of Christmassy, a bit of festive. And now this time I'm using single-sided adhesive, non-woven Buckram, but I'm also using double-sided as well. And we're going to make a boater. I thought, oh, let's make something else. And again, this type of Buckram doesn't stretch. You can't block it. So you either have to do things where you can just use flat shapes, or you have to wire it. So using the non-woven single-sided, I've cut 2 circles out using a big cake tin lid as my template. And I've just pinned them together for a minute. And then I cut a circle from fuser web or bonder web, similar thing. And on one side of the circles, on the non-adhesive side, I've ironing the fuser web. Now this adds adhesive to the fabric, and I use it quite a lot. If I didn't have Buckram with any sort of adhesive on it, I would just use bonder web. Again, let it cool, otherwise it won't stick and it'll all come off. So peel off the backing paper when it's cool, and you'll see a sort of a net effect. That's the adhesive. And that means now that circle is adhesive on both sides. So I'm putting the non-adhesive side of my top circle down onto that. And it'll all get glued together when I cut the fabric out. And I've decided for this hat that I'll use lace. I just thought that'd be nice. I've got a bit of lace. So I'm going to cut 2 circles again using the cake lid as my template. Make sure you cut an allowance around the edge just in case it doesn't fit or you need to adjust. So I've probably cut about 1 inch bigger than my cake tin lid. So I've cut 2 pieces of lace. And I'm going to sandwich my brim pieces between the lace. So 1 piece of lace on the bench, all the brim pieces in the middle, and the other piece of lace on the top. And again, I'm going to now iron this like billio to get it to stick. Now, because the lace is polyester, it takes even longer for it to stick than, say, silk. So you've really got to go over it lots and lots and lots. Use the steam on your iron to heat it up even more. So just keep going over and over until it sticks. And again, remember that you will have to let it cool to see if the adhesive is all stuck and everything's stuck together. So put it to one side and then check it again. So Now I found a little cake tin that I'm going to use as my crown block. So I've wrapped a piece of double-sided buckram around it, penciled how tall I want the crown, and then I'll cut it and it has to have an overlap, because obviously you want to overlap it as you wrap it round. So make sure you cut it big enough. I bought a whole set of 5 cake tins, and they nested inside of each other, and they've been a boon. I've used them so much for hats. So there we are, just checking it fits around my tin with an overlap, and it does. Now I'm going to use the top of the tin to cut a circle for the top of the hat. Now this has to be fairly exact. You don't want an overlap on this. And again, this buckram is double-sided. So there are my 2 pieces for the top of the hat. So now I've got to cut lace to fit those as well, and I only need 1 piece for each. So I'll cut a piece of lace for the top, and then I'll cut, I want a slight overlap because I'm going to fold it over and glue it to the other side with the adhesive so that I've got a neat edge to stitch. So yeah, just use the edge of the iron to go round and glue it all down so it's all neat and tidy. Could have speeded this up, couldn't I? It's a bit boring, this bit. And again, the same for the crown, the side of the hat. So cut a nice long piece with some overlap, and I'm going to do exactly the same. Iron it to the buckram, turn it over, and then overlap it and iron that one as well. You could use a net curtain for this, you know, a nice lacy net curtain or something. Right, now what I need is a piece of brim reed or wire, and I need it to fit the top. So measure it against it, fix your wire or your brim reed together with a piece of tape. So it's now going to go on the bottom of the crown. So what I'm going to, I'm only going to wire one edge of this. It doesn't need the top end wired as well. So I've stitched it to the bottom, just with an overlap stitch. I've stitched the side of the crown together, and then what I'll do is stitch the top in place. So you can work out whether you've stitched it together right. Now what I'm doing now is adding some hat elastic to the crown. So, do you know I did? Anyway, stitch the top to the crown. Oh, perhaps I did it here. Stitch away the excess fabric around the brim. The stitch close to the edge. No, I didn't put brim reed, I just stitched it. So centre the crown in the middle of the brim, measuring all round that it's all nice and equal, and then stitch the crown down to the brim with small stitches. There you are, like that. And now you just trim it and turn it into whatever you like. And then we have a little boater. I sell buckrams and fuse web, etc. on my website, Etsy shop. And I hope you subscribe and enjoy my videos, and have a lovely evening. Oh, it's nearly evening here. Okay then, thanks a lot. Bye.